Junior speed to stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez with a double. Whipped down the left field line, and they are going crazy at the Kingdom.
Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast.
We have the one and only Mr. Tom Hutler. Do you have any of your favorite stories from the Kingdom?
There was a time we had an earthquake, and so they were going to evacuate the building. So I was like getting up to go leave. And they go, "No, you can't go. You got to read these safety things." It's like,
do we need to tell them that there's smoking's only on the exterior ramps?
Yeah. And Dave came shooting past. He signed off. I'm going, wait, I'm the only one here.
Listen and subscribe to Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Were you having that problem where people weren't stopping dancing last night and the night before?
Oh, yeah, last night. Yeah, definitely last night and the night before. I actually, got up and was like, that's it. They're like, no, MVP. They started chanting. So I played like 5 more songs after I said that was the last song. And then I, just actually got up and started unplugging stuff.
When you're getting the MVP chants, you can't let your fans out. Have you ever had an MVP chant?
Never. And then even after I stopped, they were still dancing just to themselves, actually. They were just out here. News was out here. But I was packing up. I probably packed up all my stuff around 11:45, and it was still fans and the news stations out here still just interviewing people all up and down Occidental. Just everybody was still having a good time.
What up? This is Byron, and you are listening to the Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast. A Down on the Docks, on the other side of the tracks, 5-star dive bar podcast about your AL West champion, ALCS bound Seattle Mariners. Since the last time we talked to you, which was yesterday, 24 hours ago, we've literally been just living, sleeping, breathing this Seattle victory, this 15-inning victory. We did put out a pod last night. Hanno and myself, I was down on Occidental, out on the patios at our home base when we're down by the stadium, which is Tacos and Tequila, Pioneers Tacos and Tequila. Go check them out. You'll see them down on the scroll here. And Hanno and I did a instant reaction last night down there. And though I'm very happy with the episode, we were running and gunning there at that time of night, especially with me being out on the patio, running out of battery, and also the Wi-Fi. Apparently there was some sort of crash with Uber, or Wi-Fi crash, and there's also that concert that was going on, and the stadium letting every Mariner fan out pretty much within the same hour time that, the Wi-Fi was a little bit tricky. So we just kind of found a little pocket of time and did that episode. Anyways, there's a lot left on the table. We didn't really focus on the Blue Jays. And even though we weren't going to have an episode, Hanno doesn't even know I'm having an episode. Parmesan doesn't even know I'm having an episode. Ninja doesn't even know I'm having an episode, because I've been just sitting here chilling, reading stuff. And I'm just like, let's get a little bit of this out there just while I'm in the mood, while I'm feeling generous. Anyways, If you're watching this on YouTube, we're just going to, I'm not going to have any video, but I'm going to scroll here. We'll pull some articles up and things like that. Like here, for instance, let's look at the playoff bracket, because at the time of this recording, it is, if you can see this right here, maybe not. It is, I'm trying to add it to the stage. Anyways, the bracket is out now. It looks beautiful. It is crazy to see the Seattle Mariners and the Blue Jays there, the 1 and the 2 in the AL West. Excuse me, in the American League, the 1 and the 2 in the American League make it. And as far as the NL, you have the 1 and the 3, but you could put Philly or LA as, 2A, 2B, or really, if you're asking me, the LA Dodgers is still the scary team that everybody's got to get through, and they're right there against the Brewers. The Brewers take out the Chicago Cubs, and I think if you were worried about the LA Dodgers, like I am, I think the Brewers are the best bet to maybe knock them off. And I know we're putting the cart before the horse, and even talking about this, but now we're only one series away from possibly playing in the World Series, which is crazy. But now I guess my focus, even though I'm living in a Mariners vacuum, is to also go and check out what is going on in the National League now. Living down in Los Angeles, I know a little bit about the Dodgers, don't know a lot about the Brewers. And today, which is the focus of this episode, as you can see, the 2025 MLB Rye Bread Mustard podcast sports preview. I'm gonna take a look at how these rosters stack up, because if you were listening to yesterday's episode, I really didn't have much to say about the Blue Jays. That's why we kind of glossed over it, because I really haven't focused on them. But I am familiar with the big players, and just looking at what their turnaround of their season, or their takeover, I should say. I wouldn't say takeover, but at the beginning of the year, they didn't seem like they were all that scary when the Mariners played them in April and May. And these are two completely different teams right now. So all of that is out the window. The history with the Blue Jays. If you really know the history of the Blue Jays, the Mariners and the Blue Jays came in this world together. They both were expansion teams in 1977. And, if you want to stack up against franchise versus franchise, even though the Blue Jays, you don't think of the Blue Jays being very successful if you're newer to baseball, or if you're a little bit younger. But in the 90s, especially in the early 90s, they were two-time world champions. Lots of times have been to the playoffs, much more than the Mariners. And again, they have 2 titles. So as far as how they stack up franchise-wise of coming to this world together, the Mariners got a little bit of catching up to do. The rivalry with Vancouver just being right up the road from Seattle, and how the Blue Jay fans take over the T-Mobile Park. So that is maybe something that you're concerned about. I'm not sure if they're going to be doing the same thing they did in New York, I believe, where you had to have the correct zip code to buy a ticket. I'm not sure if the Mariners are going to do that or not, or StubHub, or any of those other third parties, or Ticketmaster are doing that. I don't know if you're going to have as big of a problem, because of, maybe some of these people plan to come down to these Blue Jay games when they get the schedule and they say, okay, well, we're going to go there. We're going to do everything this weekend, where playoff stuff is very last minute, as you know. If you look over at the Blue Jays tickets, though, for game 1 and game 2, about half the price of what it's going to cost to be at T-Mobile Park. So again, there's a difference right there. But as we were talking about, this is the preview. We're going to basically use my Seattle Times subscription that I overpay for. And if you follow the podcast, I'm like, let's put that shit to use. Okay. And I'm going to start with an article here. Well, actually, we're going to go with two articles here. One's going to be how the Mariners and the Blue Jays match up entering game one. That's going to be the meat and potatoes of this shotgun episode here. But I do want to pull up a couple little news and noteworthy things to say. I didn't know if you know this, but there is an article out here actually by Ryan Divish. Mariners delayed getting in Toronto after marathon game. That's right. They were delayed, but it seems right here in this article that the Mariners knew that they were going to be delayed. There's two airplanes, one of which was for staff and family, and the players, believe like the players' flight was delayed, but they knew in advance, as far as I'm reading here, and there wasn't any details. But the players weren't scheduled to arrive until Toronto until tonight, Saturday, earlier at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. They're already out there. But that gave the players a little bit of extra time at T-Mobile Park to get treatment and relax on couches and watch football. When I see football, just thinking of all the international players, especially South American players. Are we talking about American football or college football? I'll leave that up to you to figure out or ponder over. But like Divish says here, they weren't searching for seats in a crowded SeaTac terminal to eat their Sbarro slice and drink overpriced water. Given their schedule, the team wasn't planning to have any regular workouts. Blue Jays did work out, but of course the Mariners are resting up and recuperating from what happened there on Friday night. And as far as how they're stacking up, I'm going to go on a quick break and see if I can pull up the article. I know the other article did not show up here on the YouTube live stream, even though this really isn't for the YouTube side. This is more for a podcast, but I did want to put it out on the YouTube as well as on X and Instagram. So I'm going to go to a quick break and I'm going to come back and we're going to go over this article by Tim Booth of the Seattle Times it's about how the Mariners rosters stack up. We'll go to this break, which is a quick insert with our episode with Saturday Night Live writer Carl Tarts a couple episodes back. Just scrolling back, I highly suggest you going and checking this out.
The moment where that band starts to play the warm-up music, not the theme music, the music that y'all don't hear, when the energy picks up, when the audience is there, when the audience is getting loaded in and the band is playing, when all that stuff happens, it gives you a jolt of energy every week, and you're just like, man, I got to do this. I get to do this. Getting the first sketch on was like getting a single, maybe like a RBI. Getting called to Lauren's office in between dress and air and looking at the board and seeing that your sketch moved up from the 12:50 slot to the first act, that's when it's like, oh, we did something cool. That feels like a home run. That felt like a home run. That was Timothy Chalamet.
The game where you're like, okay, you got a couple of knocks. You got some home runs, maybe hit a grand slam, probably the Dave Chappelle show.
Yeah. So the Dave episode was my like, oh, he's a player, and we can like the Dave episode I could get talked about on the local ESPN affiliate the next day. Like that's what that felt like. It's like this guy might actually be adding some value to this.
You ask for the ball, right? If you're a player, give me that ball. I'm taking that home. Do you have the paper copy of that? Did you take something?
I do. I do have that. I got the cue cards from some of the jokes that I have in this sketch.
Oh wow.
All right. For some reason, it's just not coming up on the screen. We'll have to figure that out. But just trust my trust me with reading this. It is late, but we'll just have to roll around with it. Sorry, YouTubers. And one other little note that somebody had mentioned here about start times. As I pulled up the bracket here and we were talking about the bracket, if you don't know the start times and you're a casual fan, the bandwagon fan, welcome aboard. And it's 5:00. It's on Fox. or wherever you can stream Fox, or you can actually bunny ear this. 5 o'clock Sunday night, game 1 tonight. If you're getting this in the morning, let's just say tonight. We're already on game day. We're already in the stress cooker. We're already clenching our butts. 5 o'clock, like I said. Now, this is what I'm getting to. I just got a message here about we are still getting screwed on the times, and I guess that must be pertaining to the 5:30 start on Monday, and that is 5:30 Eastern. So looks like the Mariners are going to have another one of these early afternoon games, a matinee game, a get off of work early game if you can. Just stressing out driving home from work. Maybe you have to watch it at work, but yeah, it's going to be another 2 o'clock game again. Major League Baseball, Manfred, it needs to get this shit together, and this needs to come to an end. They got to figure something out here. I know some people are like, well, if you spread these games out too much, we're going to be playing into mid-November. But I mean, there's got to be a different way, maybe stacking more games on the weekends. I know they want to stay away from college football and football as much as possible because they're scared of what their ratings will be like. But I just feel like it's very unfair to fans to have to watch games that early when the stakes are so high. But yeah, so as far as that yes, 2 o'clock. And then as far as games 3 and 4 that will happen for sure in Seattle, there are no start times. But on that Tuesday, excuse me, they don't have any games. But that Wednesday, they're the only game. So you'd assume game 3 is going to be a 5 o'clock start. Game 3, you do have Milwaukee and the Dodgers playing, and the Mariners and Toronto. Both games are on the West Coast. Last time the two teams were together, the time before that they're together during this span is on Monday. So maybe they'll get a little bit of respect from the league on Thursday and get the late night game. Or look, what do you know? Same problem on Friday. Milwaukee and the Dodgers play on Friday, and Toronto and the Mariners play on Friday. Both games are going to be out here on the West Coast. So that's going to be another one of those, who's going to get the primetime game there. Gosh, I understand that they want you to watch all the games. They want to give you opportunity to do that. But this isn't, 1999 or even in the 2000s where you couldn't watch both these games, or you could, but there was more trickery to it. Now it's very easy to do this, especially with the streaming services. So I don't know, you can play them all at the same time. I guess it's an advertising thing. All right. Anyways, on to what we were going to talk about as the meat and potatoes of this episode, and that is, and I'm referring to the article that Tim Booth wrote in the Seattle Times. Again, ALCS, how the Mariners and the Blue Jays stack up entering game 1. Basically, this article is about them and their history, and then going back to the 95 set, blah, 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 blah. Let's get down to it. How do they stack up? We're talking position versus position. And we'll start with catcher. They have Alejandro Kirk, great player in the last series, 222, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 833 OPS. Obviously had a great first series. Who didn't offensively for the Blue Jays? And they say here the Blue Jays' pudgy performer with the bat has also become one of the better defensive catchers in baseball. That is true. If there's anybody that's probably going to give Cal a run for his money after the Gold Glove this year behind the dish, it's going to be Kirk, I would believe. Though Cal Raleigh did not have a pass ball until last night, but that didn't count in the regular season. Anyways, as you know, Cal's line for the regular season, and even last series in the ALDS, Cal Raleigh hit 381, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, OPS over 1. Cal, like he says here, looked refreshed during the ALDS, and it showed with a team high 8 hits. Although, let's not forget, he's going in this series after catching 15 innings. I did see the press conference where Cal was talking about that. I said he was tired yesterday, but didn't really think about it. Should be fine. Of course, he's going to be fine. They give the advantage, obviously, to the Mariners. Raleigh seems to take joy also in playing the Blue Jays. Yes, we know the backstory. If you don't, go Google it because we're trying to push through this episode. But in a nutshell, the Toronto Blue Jays current manager, just a couple of years ago, before Cal was Cal, just really didn't have much respect for him as far as him scaring him, and had a few comments about him, and Cal has seemed to make them pay. If we go back to the last playoff series, he made them pay, usually in Toronto as well. So look, our best player, the probably the MVP of the year, loves to play the Toronto Blue Jays and has the has the stats to back it up. It's got to make you feel good. Makes me feel good. Moving on to second base, we are talking about Blue Jays. Ernie Clement, another person who had a good series, 641, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, OPS 1.554. Also, Andres Jimenez could end up there, but Clement should have pretty much have significantly have the role. And we know Jorge Polanco, 182, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 705 OPS. But that line right there doesn't tell how impactful he was, especially what he did against Skubal in game 2 and provided the walk-off. So I'm going to scroll down. This advantage better be Polanco. Yes, Polanco's contributions, they say here, or Tim Booth says, this season will be looked back at one of the greatest bargains in franchise history. It's looking that way. It really is. We don't need to dive into the contract, but for bringing him back, and let's all thank our lucky fucking stars he did not go to Houston, because I believe that was the backstory of, like, it could have been or the Texas friend. I couldn't remember which one. I think it was Houston. We all love Jorge. Also, go check out the new Hip Hip Jorge short. The Hip Hip Jorge shirt at intheclutch.com. In the Clutch apparel. Go check it out. And hey, if you really like it, you should just get it. It's sick. It's sick. It's a great gift to get somebody too. Very topical, on brand for what we're doing here. And use the promo code Rye Bread Mustard, all one word. Save yourself some money. Moving on to third base, Addison Barger, 333, 0 home runs, no RBIs, 750 OPS. Born in Bellevue. All right, don't give a fuck. Doesn't profile as a traditional cleanup hitter, but hit 21 home runs in the regular season. Mariners obviously know Eugenio Suarez. We got to read it. It happened. 0.095 average, 1 home run, 1 RBI, 374 OPS last series. They say he was bad at the plate in the division series and seemed to be guessing often than not. Yeah, that guy is definitely a gambler at the plate. And if we go back with Eugenio Suarez, I was talking with Parmesan LeBron, and he wanted me to bring up that he does need to get out of this, or he wanted to break down the numbers of how bad of a funk he is. If you go back to the start of the Dodgers series, I believe he is 4 for 44, or maybe, yeah, I think since that Rocky series or something like that. So he's 4 for his last 44. But as you know, Eugenio, anytime that there's a deep valley, there's usually a high mountaintop coming at some point, in the near future. I think we're right at that rotational area that should happen. And Tim Booth here gives the advantage here at third base to, drum roll please, the Blue Jays. I don't know. Well, going off of what we just talked about, okay, fine. But overall, I do think Gino's going to snap out of this. But Barger's hitting left-handed and is a big counter against all Mariners right-handers is his reason. True, Mariners, besides bringing Spire in or God help us, Caleb Ferguson, aka Turd Ferguson, sometimes. Yeah, I guess I get that, but I don't know. I'm going to lean on Gino there. Moving on to shortstop, though. The guy that, aka Big Vladdy Daddy, always says is probably the guy with the most punchable face in all of baseball, Bo Bichette, son of Dante Bichette, for you real baseball fans out there, or Andres Jimenez, who was in the last round, and Bo Bichette was not on the roster because he's coming back from a knee injury, but he's hoped to be on the roster. He could be on the roster right now, actually, because I'm recording this right before they're putting out the rosters, but he's kind of in that Bryan Wu situation where they're putting him on with the hope that he's going to be okay and he's going to be effective. We hope not. Jimenez, though, is a great defensively and will likely, line up somewhere if Bichette is able to return. So, he'll be in the lineup if Bichette were able to return. But Bichette's been out for more than a month, or about a month. So, who knows what you're going to get from him? Yeah, more to come on that. I guess that will develop for us. And obviously, JP Crawford, 263, had quietly a good series until the last game here or so. But 263, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 707 OPS, up and down in the ADLS as we were mentioning. But I mean, this is the guy that scored your winning run, and like Tim Booth said, how great could that feel for the longest tenured Mariner? Their advantage gives Blue Jays. They say Bichette's return would be a big boost for an already solid offense, or could it be a liability? I kind of like that way. Going into left field, we have Anthony Santander, one of the guys that, going back in the annals of this podcast, was one of the guys we were very interested in, who lines up against a guy we also were always interested in, and the Mariners ended up getting him, and Randy Arozarena. Santander, nothing to write home about in the last series. 200 batting average, 2 RBIs, 400 OPS. But the same could be said for Randy Arozarena, and there's a couple questionable routes at balls and stuff, but 174, no home runs, 1 RBIs. And they say Tim says right here in quotation, playoff Randy has yet to show up, and the M's need him to. Amen, brother. I guess. He actually gives this one a push. Both teams would like to get more out of this position. Agreed. Moving on to center field. Here we go. Let's talk about our guy first, actually. 174, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 588 OPS. Yeah, Julio Rodriguez was not great in was great in games 1 and 2, and not so good after. He just has 2 career RBIs against Toronto. Yeah, not going off of that, nothing really great, but just like Eugenio, Randy, as good as Julio is, how hot he can get and how cold he can get. 0 for his last 14. Who knows? He might go 6 for his next 9. And their center fielder, Dalton Varsho, you know him. He was a monster in this last series. 438, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 1.47 OPS. Was limited to just 71 games in the regular seasons, but had 7 hits in the ADLS games. They still give the advantage to the Mariners, even though Varsho was great in the ADLS and Rodriguez, wasn't after the start. But Julio could still be the most impactful player in the series. That's what Tim Booth says. I would love that. We would all love that. I think we would be talking about getting some rip-off World Series tickets if that happens. Moving on to right field, they have Nathan Lukes, 333, no home runs, 5 RBIs though in this last series, 833 OPS. He could end up in left field, but as a lefty, we'll see significant time against the M's onslaught of right-handed pitching. This is probably where I know maybe some people might be a little bit, but this is where you're going to see Spire come back in. And I think Spire is going to be fine. We've seen him run into a couple of games back to back in the season, I believe, where he had some trouble. And then he goes on these stretches of where he's pretty flawless. I mean, up until that point, everybody was very comfortable with him. I think if he just stays out of the way in the middle, stays away from the middle of the plate, he'll be just fine. He'll be the Spire that we know. As far as Mariners right fielder Victor Robles, 143. No RBIs, no home runs to speak of. Last round, 643. And Tim Booth is actually wondering if we might get a game with Dom Canzone and right early in the series. They have right-handers. Advantage is a push. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Victor Robles is so good defensively, and we forget about it. So he makes tough plays seem like routine plays. So I would give the advantage to Victor Robles. As far as DH, George Springer, Dominic Canzone. I mean, it's not really a competition there. Dominic Canzone, though, he's a guy that can lean into one, can walk into a 3-run home run. He could be 1 for his last 10 and then all of a sudden have a 3-hit game or have a 5-hit game that nobody remembers because Cal Raleigh's making history. They obviously give the advantage to Springer and giving his resurgent season that maybe gets him in top 10 in MVP voting. His playoff resume speaks for itself as well. And as far as the bench, our people. We don't know the exact roster, but we're talking Rivas, Rayleigh, Garver. Barely used last series, but let's look at Leo Rivas and Garver. If we want to go into game 5, you got 2 RBIs from your bench last series. I don't know how much we've talked about that or anybody's talked about that, but you got 2 RBIs from your bench. So, hey, I think that's great. It's in a game like that. I mean, the only other RBI you got was from Jorge Polanco. The other 2 came from bench players. Mitch Garver, sure, he started, but he's a bench player on this team. You might not know the bench players on the Blue Jays, so Miles Straw, the guy whose name makes me definitely hungry for some sort of Mediterranean food, and that's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. We also have David Schneider and Tyler Heineman. Is that how you say his name? I know he's a catcher. But Straw and Kiner-Falefa are the ones who have the significant roles, and they had the significant playing time in the ADLS as well. They give the advantage, even though what I just told you about what our bench did to the Blue Jays. Toronto rotates players and has a little bit more depth. So they definitely lean on the platoon, so to speak, more than the Mariners. And let's go into starting rotation so we can get through this and wrap this up, and you can get on with your day. Or if you're getting this late here tonight, make sure you get some rest because we know we got a Seahawks game and a Mariners game if you're a real Seattle fan. Blue Jays, Kevin Gossman, he's starting game 1. Trey, yes, Savage, love the name. A rookie that's been very effective. Shane Bieber, Chris Bassett, and Jose Barros. Gossman is the game 1 starter, like I said, and this rookie Savage is going to be the game 2 starter. So, and he killed it at the Rogers Center against the Yankees in his playoff debut. Bassett had a 3.96 ERA during the regular season, but wasn't on the roster in the ALDS. And I do want to say, I'm going to cheat off of this article over to an MLB article by Kramer. By Daniel Kramer. I saw something interesting here, and I don't know if he'll be on the roster, but possibly Max Scherzer might be on this roster, was not on the first round roster. And that kind of just, even though he's not met the old Max Scherzer, you never know when one of these vets is just going to have one of these vintage games. It's just one of those storylines as a fan that I kind of are scared of those romantic moments in baseball as much as the ones that are in your favor are so great that you hold on to. But as far as the Mariners, you know what's going on. They're basically going to have get on the phone and have Jamie Moyer pitch a game. They're running low. Bryce Miller's making the start on 4 days rest, and then from there we don't know what's going to go on. The bullpen was absolutely taxed in this first series, but with that being said, Tim Booth still gives the advantage to the Mariners pitching, and I got to wholeheartedly agree with that because as far as the Mariners not meeting their expectations during the regular season, I feel like they have had this resurgence in the last couple of weeks, and especially in the playoffs, and especially what they accomplished. I think the vibes are so good. Let's just hope the Mariners bats can go out there and take some of this pressure off of the pitchers. That's what I'm looking for in this series. And as far as the relievers, if all of our guys, Spire, Bizzardo, oh my God, big game, Bizzardo, Vargas, Brash, Andres Munoz, and all of our starting pitchers who have now been bullpen pitchers. But as far as the Blue Jays, Brendan Fisher, Mason, Blue Hardy, Brendan Little, Luis Varlin, Jeff Hoffman. He says here, Toronto's bullpen won Game 4 against the Yankees. Varlin was terrific pickup at the trade deadline. And Little and Fluharty are key lefties. Hoffman had 33 saves in the regular season, but can be shaky. Ooh, I like the sound of that. But they give the advantage to the Mariners, same as the starters. They've been tired. After they're going to be tired and fatigue could catch up. But again, if the bats take care of business, that will be a great help. And the Mariners are just going to have to hit in this series. I mean, Toronto has the best batting average in the regular season in the AL. They have the least swing and miss. So the Mariners are going to have to hit the ball, and they're going to have to play clean defense, making the routine plays and the occasional great play. But they cannot shoot themselves or give a team like this any extra outs. You can't give any team any extra outs, but definitely the best average hitting, non-missing the ball team, you have to play clean defense. That's the X factor in this series, probably. Who's going to play cleaner? And that's really who's giving the other team more outs. You cannot do that with the Blue Jays. All right. Point made. Now we're going to get down to the last one. We'll wrap this up. And they actually have the managers. John Schneider, who I think is a buffoon. I can't stand him. And I hope Cal Raleigh makes him pay again. Can't believe this guy even still has a job. But listen, he led this team to an American League number 1 seed. Took back the AL East. So let's give him credit where credit's due. Sure. Still don't like him. But yeah, led the Blue Jays to their first AL East title since 2015 and their first series win since 2016. Well, guess what? We got our first one since 2001 and our first home trip since 2001. It sounds much, much better, much cooler. Anyways, one of the favorites for manager of the year, Dan Wilson, Tim Booth's words and probably ours. He's made a couple of questionable decisions in his first playoff series as a manager, but made the right calls in Game 5. Hey, he won the series. I think he learned a lot. He's talked about that, and we're rolling with Dan, and we're not going to dig into him right now. And advantage, though, Tim Booth says the Blue Jays, they both have one playoff series win to their names, but Schneider seemed to make all the right moves against the Yankees. Well, there you have it. It seems like the advantages are leaning towards the Seattle Mariners. I saw something very odd today that the Mariners are slight underdogs in the series, but then in the World Series odds, they are above the Blue Jays, which I don't. Somebody please tell me how that works. Let's see here. We do have some comments. I didn't mean for this to be a YouTube thing, but let's do it. Fred Farmer, let's fucking go. Yes, let's fucking go. Let's go and wrap this episode up here. Again, thanks for liking, subscribing, and all that shit. If you are going to be going down to the game on Wednesday, make sure to stop by Pioneers Tacos and Tequila. You'll see the banners out there. Go in there and find us. We'll be down there. As far as episodes, we'll definitely be coming to you after each game. Got maybe a special guest coming on Monday night, but if you're on the YouTube side, we'll be back Sunday night as well as Monday evening. If you're on the podcast side, you're usually getting these in the morning. We have been getting them out earlier though during the series just because this is all time sensitive shit. Anyways, if you want the street cred for rocking the rye bread, hit up at simply.cora, at simply.cora. What in the hell does that mean? We're talking about merchandise here. Sweatshirts, hoodies, they're the same thing. Well, you can get a crew neck sweatshirt, I guess, and a hoodie, t-shirts, tank tops, because you know it's summertime, and barbecue bibs aprons, koozies, you name it. Hit up at simply.cora. That's at simply.cora on Etsy or Instagram. And like I mentioned earlier, hit up In the Clutch Apparel. In the Clutch Apparel has the new Hip Hip Horror Hey shirt, also has the Hot Dogs for Heaven shirt, all kinds of Mariner stuff, all kinds of NBA stuff. NHL, NFL, tennis, golf, they got it all. All this money goes to the players, does not go to fanatics. All right. This is all licensed stuff. In the Clutch Apparel, use promo code Rye Bread and Mustard, all one word. And listen, if you're looking for that hot dog out there on Occidental, make sure you get Al's Famous Sausages. That's our favorite. That is our pick to click when you're getting dogs, especially those 2-for-1s after the game. Anyways, I think I've covered everything on this episode as much as I could do. It was a quick, I'm going to come on for 15 minutes, so I did a very loose, almost 45 minutes of rambling on about the Mariners matchup here and a little bit of opinions on the scheduling and all this and that. Game 1, here we go. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. With that being said, no, I'm not going to pimp myself into that. Okay, well, with that being said, you know what time it is. Ciao.